Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar for California's Affordable Housing Preservation Laws. We'll start the webinar in a few minutes to allow people to trickle into the room. Thank you for your patience. We will start the webinar now.
Hello and welcome to this webinar held by 8CD's Housing Accountability Unit on the topic of California's affordable housing preservation laws. My name is Mer Slaimani. I'm joined by my colleagues, April Martinez, Leslie Woodman, and Courtney Ide, who will be presenting today. This webinar is being recorded and we'll post and distribute the recording once it's available. So in this webinar, we'll cover the following topics. We'll begin by contextualizing why preservation of at-risk subsidized housing matters, offer background on affordable housing preservation laws, or APPLE for short, and how APPLE works. Then we'll go into roles of key players, and notably the role of qualified entities, or QEs. And we'll wrap up this presentation with an overview of the newly released technical advisory material from 8CD, among other resources. Now I'll pass it over to April for the next segment of our presentation.
Thank you, Marissa. First, we will start with a poll to know why folks are attending the webinar today. So the poll should pop up on your screen, and I'll give folks about 3 minutes to fill it out. The options include A, to understand the Affordable Housing Preservation Law, or short as APPLE, requirements as owners of multifamily affordable housing developments, to learn about tenant rights and protections under APPLE, to understand how to qualify and participate in preserving at-risk properties, to learn how housing authorities or local agencies can preserve at-risk properties through APPLE, to better assist tenants or buyers as a legal services provider or advocate, or to gain general knowledge about APPLE compliance and HCD resources. So I'll let folks, as mentioned, 2 more minutes, and then we can see the results. Okay, great. It seems that a lot of folks are here to gain general knowledge about APPLE compliance and HCD resources, which we'll be going into. But of course, people are also here to learn about housing authorities and local agencies can help preserve at-risk properties through APPLE. And I see that other folks are here for the other options. So we'll definitely go into those items in this presentation. Next slide, please. So let's begin this presentation with why preservation of at-risk subsidized housing matters. Next slide. California has been creating subsidized affordable rental homes over many decades. These affordable homes are subsidized through a mix of funding from federal, state, and local city and county support. Typically, these homes have affordability periods of 20 to 50 plus years. Yet, as these homes near the end of their affordability period, they face the risk of shifting to market rate. This shift can lead to significant rent increases, displacement of vulnerable tenants, and the loss of homes affordable to lower-income seniors and families. Looking at the present data from the California Housing Partnership's 2026 report, we see that 46,555 homes are at risk of losing affordability by 2036. 6,082 homes are at a very high risk of losing affordability this year. Risk levels in this graph demonstrate properties that are very high risk level, meaning affordability is ending within 1 year. High risk level, meaning within 1 to 5 years, affordability would end. And then moderate risk level, in 5 to 10 years, affordability would end. As you can see on the graph on the left, a significant portion of these at-risk affordable homes, about 8 out of 10 homes, are restricted by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, or by low-income housing tax credits, LIHTC. Next slide. Now, I'll share a bit about rising rent compared to stagnant income we see among renters. Considering the impact of loss of affordable housing in California, we are observing that since 2000, median rent has increased by 44%. This is roughly around $7,712 in annual median rent, while median renter's household income has only increased by 11%, around $6,958 in annual median income. This trend results in a 755 annual loss in renters' purchasing power. Next slide. So what is at stake in California and for renters? Well, more than half of Californians' 6 million renter households are lower income. So to further analyze the loss of at-risk properties at the level of a household, we can compare the average asking market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment and the income needed to meet the asking rent. With the average 2-bedroom market rate rent being approximately $2,485, renters must earn 2.8 times the amount of state minimum wage to afford the asking rent. As the graph on the left shows, this implies that Californians, mainly home health and care aides, farm workers, childcare workers, sanitation workers, and retail workers are severely cost burdened. A household is considered cost burden if they pay 30% or more of their household income on housing costs, and severely cost burden if they pay more than 50% of household income on housing costs. When households are cost burdened, they have little ability to absorb economic shocks or save for a down payment, which increases their risk of homelessness and reduces opportunities for home ownership. So I'll pass it over to Leslie for the next segment of our presentation.
Great, thanks, April. With that context in mind, we'll now discuss the Affordable Housing Preservation Laws, or APPLE, and how APPLE addresses the risk of affordable homes shifting to market rate. Next slide, please. Affordable housing preservation laws were enacted in 1987 to preserve affordable housing in California by preventing this conversion. Starting in 2018, AB 1521 strengthened Government Code sections 65863.10, 65863.11, and 65863.13 with a new 3-year noticing requirement, expanded HCD's enforcement authority, and requiring an annual report to the legislature. In 2021, AB 1584 made additional revisions, including limiting the law to properties with 5 or more units, as well as revising the due date of this report to the legislature to be December 31st, covering the prior fiscal year starting in 2022. In 2025, AB 2926 made significant changes to the sale process under affordable housing preservation laws by giving preferential treatment to entities that are interested in buying and preserving an at-risk property to keep it affordable. Next slide, please. The core components to APPLE include the Notice of Opportunity to submit an offer to purchase, or NOSOP, The role of qualified entities. Notices of intent issued to tenants and affected public entities before the end of affordability, and the annual owner certification of compliance. And for the purpose of this webinar, we'll mainly elaborate on the first three components. Next slide. In terms of how the law works, affordable housing preservation refers to maintaining the long-term affordability of housing developments with expiring rental restrictions that keep rents affordable to low-income residents. Central to the state's policy, under Government Code Section 65863.11, is preferential treatment to entities that are interested in buying a property to keep it affordable. This process begins when an owner of a California rental housing development with rental assistance or rental restrictions imposed under the terms of a federal, state, or local subsidy or land use program seeks to terminate the assistance or restrictions, including by expiration of a deed restriction or prepayment of a mortgage. Property owners must make key stakeholders aware of this opportunity through a notice of opportunity to submit an offer to purchase, the NOSOP. A summary of the NOSOP process is located in the lower portion of the slide in the reddish orange area. The NOSOP is issued to qualified entities, or QEs, along with the 12-month notice, or anytime the owner plans to sell the property within 5 years before the end of affordability. The law gives, among other things, a right of first refusal on the property to certain stakeholders that are determined to be a qualified entity, or QE, by HCD, and are willing to maintain the affordability of the property. It is therefore imperative that any parties potentially interested in purchasing properties to promote long-term affordability to complete the qualified entity certification form so that they can be notified of opportunities and benefits from the full advantages of being deemed a qualified entity in the purchase process. And more on that process in the coming slides. So once the NOSOP is issued, it begins a 270-day offer period, during which time owners may receive a bona fide offer from a qualified entity. If an owner receives one or more offers, then the owner must notify HCD within 90 days and either accept the offer from the qualified entity subject to the valuation process and execute a purchase agreement, or record a new agreement with a term of at least 30 years that meets certain criteria outlined in Apple. If an owner does not receive any offers during the 270-day period, then the owner may sell the property to any buyer after recording a compliance certificate, or extend affordability restrictions for any period of time, or maintain ownership of the property and allow the affordability to end after all compliant Apple noticing requirements are provided. And we'd like to highlight here, if a qualified entity believes they should have received a NOSOP, but did not, they should contact HCD. And we'll share more on this in a future slide. So besides the NOSOP, there are 3 types of notices of intent which are issued to affected and prospective tenants, affected public entities such as local housing authorities, city mayor or county board of supervisor, and HCD. And a summary of those notices are highlighted at the top of the slide. The 3-year notice is issued 3 years prior to the expiration of rental restrictions, prepayment of a mortgage, or scheduled termination of a subsidy contract. The 3-year notice is sent to affected public entities, current tenants by posting the notice in an accessible location on the property, and to prospective tenants. The 12-month notice is issued 12 months prior to the expiration of rental restrictions, prepayment of a mortgage, or scheduled termination of a subsidy contract. The 12-month notice is sent to affected public entities and affected and prospective tenants. The 6-month notice is issued 6 months prior to the expiration of rental restrictions, prepayment of a mortgage, or scheduled termination of a subsidy contract. And there are 2 separate 6-month notices that need to be issued. One sent to affected and prospective tenants, and then one sent to affected public entities. And so now I'll pass it on to Courtney for the next segment of the presentation.
Thank you, Leslie, and good morning, everybody. In this next section, I'll share more about the role and benefits of qualified entities, also known as QEs, as it relates to Apple, and I'll discuss some of the core players of Apple. First, I'll dive into why qualified entities matter. First reason why qualified entities matter is because they receive preferential purchase rights under Apple, as Leslie mentioned. Under AB 2926, qualified entities have the first opportunity to purchase at-risk properties before they potentially convert to market rate. This is a really powerful tool that QEs can take advantage of in a competitive real estate market. The second reason why qualified entities matter is because of the preservation mission that they usually hold. Qualified entities are known for being mission-driven organizations who are committed to maintaining long-term affordability. Maintaining long-term affordability of existing housing helps alleviate the affordable housing shortage that California is facing. The third reason why qualified entities matter is because they provide community stability. When a QE purchases an at-risk property, they are preventing displacement of those tenants and ensuring the residents can remain in their homes for the long-term future. The fourth reason why qualified entities matter is because they strengthen public accountability. To become a QE, as mentioned, an entity must first be vetted by HCD. QEs must demonstrate capacity to ensure responsible stewardship of the affordable housing that they're purchasing. This helps to ensure the housing purchased by QEs will remain affordable for the foreseeable future. The last thing we'd like to touch on is the strategic partnerships that the qualified entities usually form. And these are usually private-public partnerships. QEs will often collaborate with local governments, nonprofits, and tenant groups to maximize preservation outcomes. These partnerships highlight the collaboration that is needed to successfully preserve California's affordable housing stock. Next slide, please. Now I'll cover how to become a qualified entity. As previously mentioned, QEs must first be certified by HCD as being capable of operating the housing and preserving the affordability for the long term. Tenant associations, local, regional, or national nonprofits, and public agencies and for-profit housing developers are all eligible to become qualified entities. To become a qualified entity, an entity should first review the requirements and verify that they're eligible to become a QE. The requirements can be found in HCD's certification form on our website, or it can also be found in Government Code Section 65863.11 in Subdivision E. Interested party can initiate the process by submitting a completed QE certification form to HCD. This form is available on our website, and we'll share the link to this later. This form can also be used to update an existing QE's information. If you're uncertain of your entity status as a QE, you can always check HCD's current list of QEs posted on our website. Next slide, please. Now we'll discuss some of the core players in Apple, and I'll share some helpful information about each stakeholder group. The first group I'll touch on is property owners. Under Apple, an owner is defined as an entity that holds title in the land on which an assisted housing development is located. If there's a lease involved, both the owner of the land and the owner with interest in the assisted housing development are responsible for compliance with Apple. Under Apple, some responsibilities that the property owner must undertake include the issuing of notices to tenants and affected public entities. As Leslie previously mentioned, affected public entities include the city/county where the development is located, the local housing authority whose jurisdiction the property lies within, and HCD. Property owners must also issue the NOSOP, which is known as the Notice of Opportunity to Submit an Offer to Purchase, to the qualified entities. Owners must also maintain affordability until all Apple requirements have been met. Affordability requirements should not expire until all notices required under Apple have been issued. Owners are also responsible for completing the annual owner certification of compliance. The annual owner certification of compliance can be completed via HCD's preservation portal, and this process must be completed annually for properties in which 5% or more of the total units are affordable. The next key players that I'll discuss are the tenants. Under Apple, a tenant is defined as a tenant household residing in assisted housing development at the time the notice is required to be provided pursuant to Apple. Some important things for tenants to be aware of under Apple include the importance of learning about their rights under Apple. HCD recently published the Tenants' Right Fact Sheet to help tenants navigate Apple, as we do understand that it's a very complex law with many parts. This fact sheet can be found on our website, and we'll be sure to share the links to the fact sheets later in the webinar. It's also important for tenants to review the notices when they're received. These notices touch upon some of the rights that tenants have under Apple, and they also include resources and other groups for the tenants to reach out to help navigate the situations. Tenants can also report potential violations to HCD, and this should be done via the HCD portal. You can submit it under technical assistance ticket. It's also important that tenants don't self-evict upon receiving the notices, especially when the 3-year notice is issued. Tenants should review the resources available in the notice and on HCD's website to explore their options when they receive the notice. Tenants should also be aware that injunctive relief is available if Apple has been violated. As previously discussed, qualified entities are also a core player in Apple, especially regarding their efforts related to the preservation of affordable housing. As previously mentioned, QEs can include tenant associations, government entities, housing authorities, and housing developers. Some of the important items for QEs to note include the following. QEs can check HCD's website to ensure they've received the relevant NOSOPs. HCD posts information about all of the notices we receive in an effort for transparency. As previously touched upon, QEs are encouraged to take advantage of the exclusive 270-day offer period, and they are encouraged to submit a bona fide offer during this period. QEs can also submit potential violations to HCD, and as mentioned earlier, this should be done via the preservation portal. The fourth stakeholder group I'll be discussing are housing authorities and local and regional agencies. Under Apple, as Leslie mentioned, we generally call this group the affected public entities, or an APE. Some way for affected public entities to get involved with Apple include the following. APs are allowed to also become qualified entities under Apple. Becoming a qualified entity as an APE would allow this entity to potentially purchase an at-risk property. APs can also identify and educate potential QEs within their network and encourage them to register with HCD. APs can also verify if the relevant notices have been received for a property within their jurisdiction. APs are encouraged to proactively review their portfolios and ensure that the property owners within their jurisdiction are aware of Apple noticing requirements before the notices are required. HCD is always happy to collaborate with the APs to proactively monitor at-risk properties within their portfolio and to enforce Apple. Once the notices are received, APs can also compare the information contained within the notice with their own data for their portfolio and inform HCD of any discrepancies in expiration dates, funding types, and any other data contained in the notices. APs are also encouraged to check with HCD before releasing or reconveying the regulatory agreement to ensure that Apple has been complied with. APs are also able to report violations of Apple to HCD, and that should be done once again via the preservation portal. The fifth stakeholder group that I will touch upon is legal services and advocacy groups. Legal services and advocacy groups are vital to the Apple ecosystem, as they are often the stakeholder groups conducting the on-the-ground efforts. Some ways for legal services and advocacy groups to become involved with Apple include the following. They can learn about Apple and educate staff on key parts of the law. Knowledge of Apple definitely makes it easier to identify potential violations. Legal services and advocacy groups can also work to educate and protect tenants living at at-risk properties. When tenants receive the notices, it can often cause panic and worry, and knowledge of the law can help these legal aid and advocacy groups better serve their vulnerable tenants. They can also educate and identify potential qualified entities and encourage them to register with HCD as a QE. And like many of the other stakeholder groups that I've touched upon, legal service and advocacy groups can report potential violations of Apple to HCD as well. Lastly, I'll be sharing more about HCD's role in Apple. Under Apple, HCD is tasked with the following. First, we monitor and enforce compliance with Apple. HCD is also tasked with creating the templates for owners to use to comply with Apple. Templates of all the required notices are available in both English and Spanish on HCD's website, and these links will be shared later in the webinar. HCD is also tasked with monitoring and maintaining the QE list, which can be found on our website. We also monitor the annual owner certifications. The annual owner certifications can be completed through the preservation portal. HCD is also tasked with completing an annual report, and this report provides a high-level overview of the Apple work completed for the reporting year. HCD is also available to provide technical assistance. We're available to provide technical assistance to owners, local and regional preservation partners, and any other stakeholder group that I've touched upon today. HCD is also tasked with referring violations of Apple to the Attorney General. Now I'll pass it back to Leslie to cover the last segment on the resources that HCD has made available.
Great, thanks, Courtney. So in the last 2 years, HCD has been updating its certification processes and resources related to Apple. And we're pleased to announce HCD's newly updated guide to affordable housing preservation laws. So this updated guide describes the overall purpose of Apple and the various processes embedded in the laws, such as the sale and preservation of affordable housing properties, annual certification of assisted housing development, notices to tenants and affected public entities, as well as HCD's role in implementing these laws. The updated guide reflects amendments from AB 2926 and AB 1529, including but not limited to new funding programs added to the definition of assisted housing development subject to Apple, changes to the no-stop process and advantages available to qualified entities, and other changes to the HCD approved notice template forms. Complementary to the updated guide, HCD has also released a series of fact sheets, as mentioned by Courtney, as tailored cheat sheets per each stakeholder group. So there are fact sheets specifically for tenants, tenant associations, qualified buyers, affected public entities, as well as property owners. In addition to these technical advisory material, HCD's preservation website, you'll be able to find a description and resources to become a qualified entity and complete the certification form that was previously mentioned, a link to various HCD approved notice template forms, a link to HCD's affordable housing preservation portal to get in contact with our team to complete the annual owner certification, to submit Apple notices for HCD's compliance review, as well as to submit a request for technical assistance or review of a potential violation. So now I'll pass it over to Mirza to wrap this presentation up.
Thank you, Leslie. And actually, before we conclude, I also wanted to actually switch over to our preservation website. So just to give a quick walkthrough of all the content that Leslie just mentioned. Here you'll find the preservation website, which has also been shared in the chat. If you ever find yourself on the 8CD main page, if you go to the policy and research tab, here you can find preserving existing affordable housing to be able to find our main preservation webpage. On this webpage, you'll find some introductory information about affordable housing preservation laws, or APPLE. We have also included links to the government code sections to be able to directly refer back to the statute itself. The guide to affordable housing preservation laws and fact sheet that we have been describing so far, and which is why many of you are here today, can be found on this page. Here you can find the links to each of the guides and the fact sheets, which we definitely encourage you all to take a look at, as well as the Affordable Housing Preservation Portal, which our team has been referencing many times throughout this presentation. In order to get in touch with us to submit a technical assistance, even if it's a simple question, we do recommend that you go through the portal to get in touch with us so that the team has access to your inquiry and can respond to it accordingly. Through this portal, you'll also be able to complete the annual owner certification of compliance, which we have been mentioning, as well as be able to submit the notices and any of the supporting documents in compliance with APPLE. And finally, for anyone who, in addition to technical assistance, if you're concerned or believe that there might have been a violation of APPLE, you can submit a request to review a potential violation through this portal. I have loaded it up so we can take a look if it allows me. I may have to enter an authentication, which may take a moment here. But essentially, once you log into the portal, you'll be able to find all the different request forms. It's quite straightforward and simple to be able to submit a TA or to submit any questions you may have through the portal to us. Then along on the website, on the preservation page, you'll be able to access the more information and all the notice templates that we have been mentioning. For example, starting with the notice of opportunity to submit an offer to purchase, the NOSOP form can be found here. Here you can find the template, as well as instructions on how to issue the NOSOP, who it needs to go to, as well as some reminders again of the 207-day offer period that is triggered once a NOSOP is issued, and more information on this can be found in the statute, in the guide, as well as in the relevant fact sheets. Another important one that I wanted to highlight on our website is the qualified entities URL link section of our website. As mentioned here, you can visit to find the qualified entity certification form for anyone, any organization or entity looking to become certified through HCD as a qualified entity. You can find the form and instructions on how to fill out the form and submit it through the portal, as well as some information about those who are currently certified as qualified entities on HCD's website. So you can click here to see this list that is frequently updated. And again, if qualified entities believe that they should have received a NOSOP that they have not, we have also provided a reminder here that you can go to our portal to submit a request for review of potential violation. The rest of the notices that we have mentioned, the 3-year, 12-month, and 6-month notices, the notices of intent that are issued to tenants, as well as affected public entities, are all listed here. And in each of these links, you'll be able to locate the template form, as well as instructions on how to submit those notices to HCD and other essential key stakeholders. As mentioned, we weren't going to go so deep into this one in this webinar presentation, but there is also the requirement for owners to annually complete the annual owner certification of compliance. And this is also done through the portal. And here you can go to this section where describes a little bit more, references and cites the statute, and provides you the link to the annual to the portal to complete the annual owner certification. Finally, there are other resources that we also share on our website. Namely, we have under our transparency section, we have the technical assistance and enforcement letters. So here you can find a list of letters that the HCD's preservation team has issued to provide either technical assistance, notice of potential violation, notice of violation, or even letters of inquiry as part of our monitoring and enforcement process. And then also here you can find the notices that HCD received as part of the requirement under the Affordable Housing Preservation Laws. There are other resources that are included at the bottom of our website. Most of these direct you to the California Housing Partnership, where you can contact them in order to get access to data of at-risk affordable housing properties, as well as some of the other helpful resources that they have available there. And with that, I'll switch back to our PowerPoint. All right. So again, the links are placed in the chat, the main one to our preservation website, as well as all the other sub URLs that we thought you might find helpful. And if you wish to, you can also pull out your phone and scan the QR code that's on the website right now in order to go directly to the HCD preservation website. We look forward to hearing from you with any questions you may have, and please contact us through the Affordable Housing Preservation website that we have linked and also provided on our preservation website as well. And thank you again for joining this webinar.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the webinar. Thank you for joining.